Well, hey everybody, it's been quite some time since I've actually talked to all of you. I've had so many fun adventures over the last couple of weeks. I've had an Oscars party, which we all really lost. We lost a lot of our picks, but that's okay. The Oscars, who cares really about them? Independent Spirit Awards is where it's at, actually. But we also, me and my friends, went to Arkansas, and we had a really good time getting some records and some movies as well. But today I wanted to continue my favorite series. So today I've actually wanted to do my top 10 favorite Criterion releases. Now when I say Criterion releases, I mean these are my current top 10 favorite movies in the Criterion Collection. Now I have not seen probably over half of the films in Criterion, so honestly this is not a static list, it'll just change over time. But I wanted to talk about my current favorite top 10 of Criterion. So let's begin with number 10. So starting off on my list, I have Andrei Rublev. This is the most recent movie that I probably have seen, and when I say that, I saw this a couple of like months ago. I saw it with my friend Palmer. He's been on the channel. We talked a lot about this at length. I'm really happy that I was able to check this movie out. I really enjoyed just Tarkovsky. This is the first movie and the only movie I've seen by Tarkovsky, so apologies down below. But I am really looking forward to checking out more and more of his works and getting more and more in depth. There's so many layers to this film. Tarkovsky adds a little bit of a fictional world to Andrei Rublev, this painter from the medieval period in Russia who painted a lot of just Russian life, Russian saints, all having a crisis of faith as well in this film. And that's what's so wonderful about this movie. This has some of the most beautiful cinematography I've ever seen played out on a screen. I saw it on a big giant screen in a theater, so it was wonderful. And there's so many just different chapters of Andrei Rublev's life that it really explored, and I really loved seeing the character of Andrei Rublev unfold in all of these really nightmarish scenarios where he's having a personal crisis with what's going on around him, on top of the fact that he's having an internal struggle with his own faith. And I think this is a really deep film, and I really love how Tarkovsky kind of created and crafted this character. And I just cannot wait to start my Tarkovsky journey. Andrei Rublev is a really great start to it. I know this is probably one of the more straightforward movies I've heard by Tarkovsky. So I really loved Andrei Rublev. That's why it's my number 10 pick. So let's move on to number 9. Alright, so we're moving on to number 9. Now this is a very difficult spot because I wanted to put Akira Kurosawa in here in some kind of capacity. But the movie I picked for him was one of his last films. This is Dreams. Now this is a lot of different vignettes of a lot of different things that Kurosawa has had. I guess just as dreams himself, and a lot of these are mixing Japanese folklore and mythology with a lot of the things that happened in his life with World War II, and there's just a lot of depth and just creativity just embedded into this project, and I absolutely love it. This came out in 1990, which is one of, like I said, the last things that Kurosawa has done, and I don't know, I've just been thinking more and more recently of how this creative process of, you know, a really fantastic director. I would say Seven Samurai, Rashomon, Ikiru, these movies, you know, stick with me, and I absolutely love the kind of the vision that Kurosawa has. And so this is a very different side of him, and it's a very colorful side, very black and white side to him. It's got that really kind of Japanese zaniness to it that I really, really love, and I just absolutely love Akira Kurosawa's Dreams. It's something I want to revisit over and over again. I've seen it only twice now. I just really love how each of these vignettes kind of play out, and it's really creative. There's 8 of them, all the way from, you know, some kind of spiritual dance in the woods with foxes, all the way to a World War II ghost story that is just really zany, but also really, really creative, and it's just, I don't know, it's something that fascinates me. As somebody who doesn't really dream that often, obviously we dream a lot, but I don't really recall my dreams myself. This is really, really fascinating. As somebody who I don't really consider myself much of an artist myself. I really appreciate art, obviously. I'm around a lot of it. I have some of it on my arm. I really love being around creative people. And this is one of those things that it's really fascinating, and I just absolutely love. So check out Kurosawa's Dreams. So let's move on to number 8. All right, for number 8, we're going to stay in Japan for some kind of capacity. We have Paul Schrader's Mishima, A Life in 4 Chapters. I just absolutely love this movie. I was told to get this movie. I actually got it in LA when I was out there visiting my friends. And I just absolutely love this movie. I've only seen it once, but it's stuck with me so much. Another movie dealing with somebody who has had a struggle and each different type of chapters of his life. And this is based on a real person, Mishima. This is kind of like Andrei Rublev in a way, because you're seeing different aspects of his life as he's going through each segment of it. And as he was a kid, what his home life was, the people he surrounded himself with, the friends, the comrades, just all, you know, his compatriots in the military. It's just a bunch of different things kind of, you know, combined into one, and then visually it's just a stunning film. Paul Schrader is just an amazing director. I am in love with First Reformed. That was my favorite movie of last year. And I really love visiting this movie. And this came out in 1985, so it's, you know, it doesn't feel like it's that old. It feels like a movie that just came out yesterday, because it's some of the cinematography and some of the acting is just phenomenal, and it's absolutely stunning. This piece of art, and it really just makes you question the sanctity of life and what people are capable of doing to each other for a cause, what people believe in. This is a very big movie about belief, and that's something that I think probably stems with Paul Schrader a little bit in several of the films I've seen with him. What people believe and what people are capable of doing with that belief system, and how far they're going to go with it. And it's just really stunning to see that. I just really love this movie. It's a hard movie to watch. The ending is really impactful, and I highly recommend checking out Mishima, A Life in 4 Chapters if you haven't seen it. And also, this cover is just amazing. I mean, look at this design. It's a beautiful just piece of work, and it's just, I don't know. There's a lot of really cool things about this movie, and it's just really colorful, and it's really cool. So, that is my number 8 pick, Mishima, A Life in 4 Chapters. Let's go on to number 7. Alright, moving on to number 7 is one of my favorite horror movies of all time, especially in the Criterion Collection. It's honestly between this and Night of the Hunter, but I actually picked The Innocence. This movie is from 1961. It is directed by Jack Clayton. This movie is just a stunning piece of cinematography on top of just eeriness and creepiness, and there's so many layers to this movie as well. It's an atmospheric film that just really stuck with me the first time I watched it, and just the performances in this movie are just phenomenal, because the kids in it are just so damn believable as they're approaching something that's very sinister and very evil around them at this one location that is just haunting, honestly, everybody in the house, especially our main actress. And so I just love this film for so many different reasons. Honestly, it's what I look for in horror films. I look for atmosphere. I look for things that kind of just challenge my sensibilities, and this movie definitely suspends that a little bit, and it goes into some territories that are really dark and really heavy. And I guess that's probably a theme of a lot of the movies that I really, really enjoy, is that these movies challenge the way I think, and they really challenge the way I see life. Even if it is obviously all in our heads, or it's actually imagined horror, or it's a visual horror of some sort. And so this is a really, really fantastic film. If you have not seen this movie, I highly recommend checking out The Innocence, because it's just one of those pieces of work that will suspend your disbelief on what actually happens in this movie. So this is a really good movie. So now I'm going to transition into my number 6 pick. So for number 6, I'm actually going to go with one of my classic films that I just absolutely adore, and that is 12 Angry Men. I absolutely love this film. This is directed by a really phenomenal director. We have Sidney Lumet, who is just one of those legendary directors that has directed so many fantastic films, and this is probably my favorite one. I have not seen everything, I will say. In 1957, there was a lot of really great things that came out this year, but this is probably one of the best years for film, and 12 Angry Men is no exception. This movie is such a minimalistic film. It's 12 people on this jury who are trying to just decide the fate of this young man, man of a minority. I believe Puerto Rican. I'm gonna have to look at this. Yeah, Puerto Rican. And so this is assumed during this time period that obviously this Puerto Rican did this murder, committed this crime, and all 11 of the 12 men are like, yeah, obviously he's guilty, but one of them decides that he's not. He's like, I'm kind of questioning this, doesn't seem right. And slowly and surely you see this dialogue between all of these men, and you get all their personalities just fleshed out in this movie, and it's just such a great movie. And just the dialogue, you were just never bored. The dialogue in this is just top notch, and it's one of the most stunning just pieces of simplicity. And it's another thing that, like I said a little bit earlier, I get really invested in movies that kind of just really challenge the way I think. And this movie is absolutely one of those things. Obviously, I'm more on the side of the one man who decided to change everybody's mind, but it's fascinating seeing that process unfold. And so it's just one of those things it's technical masterwork from Sidney Lumet, and I just absolutely love it. So check out 12 Angry Men if you haven't seen this. This is my number 6 pick. It's an amazing movie. So let's move on to number 5. Alright, so moving on to number 5 is a movie by Wim Wenders from Germany, Paris, Texas. This movie is just one of those movies I just recently saw for the second time with my friends Seth and Chris, who've been on the channel. You've seen them on the last 2 videos that I talked about. But this movie is just one of those movies that, another thing that just, it's a lot of grief, and so this movie deals with grief in a way that I've never seen it unfold on screen. And there are just so many impactful moments of this movie that don't really seem to be very important from a visual standpoint. Maybe sometimes the cinematography is just fantastic, because, you know, it's one of those road movies that Wim Wenders did that is just really, really gorgeous. But at the same time, for most conventional audiences, they probably won't find this a very fascinating movie. I think it's fascinating in the small details of the delicacies of the acting in this movie, and just the stunning just performances by everybody involved. I just really, really love, I'm trying to look up the kid's name, just, you know, we obviously have Henry Dean Stanton, who is our main protagonist, who at the very, very beginning of the film is reunited with his brother after disappearing for 5 years in the desert, and kind of just not knowing really, he's dealing with some kind of grief that we don't really know, and he's kind of mute. And he gets reunited with his son, who he's really never really knew. He knew when he was really, really young, and it's one of those things that just, the characters unfold. Paris, Texas is one of those movies that you just won't forget. There are several scenes in this movie that just kind of really challenge the way people look at each other. And I absolutely love it, because I'm getting a little emotional right now because I'm thinking about it. The element of forgiveness in this movie is just, it's so precious. There is something about it that really kind of sticks with me, and you know, the emotion of forgiveness is something that is very hard to do, and honestly, it takes time to forgive somebody for something, and this movie captures that in a way that I've never seen any other movie do. And it's just one of those movies that is just really, really fantastic. And I'm getting emotional myself, because I'm just thinking of all the times that, you know, it takes me a while to, you know, to get to forgiveness a lot of times for certain things in my life. And so it's just something that I just connect to, and I absolutely love it. And I'm honestly thinking a little emotionally about it, because, you know, the very end of this film, it's one of the most impactful films I've ever seen. So that's why I like Paris, Texas so damn much, as you can probably tell. So let's move on. Alright, we're moving on to number 4. And when I say not so cheery, we're talking about Decalogue. This is a fantastic, fantastic television type movie series, right? It's a television movie series from Poland, right before the fall of the Berlin Wall. And this is in 1988. We have Krzysztof Kieślowski, who's, you know, done the Three Colors trilogy and, you know, Double Life of Veronique. Veronique, I probably mispronounced that correctly. But Decalogue is just something special. It's the first thing I ever watched by this director, this Polish director. And each of these 10 stories represent, kind of loosely, some of the Ten Commandments from the Bible. And I just really fell in love with these stories, mainly because of their emotional impact and just the things that they represent. And these are all stories in this one particular, you know, kind of area where you're dealing with this apartment building. It kind of, you know, like I said, on, you know, the side of the Cold War state. So you're dealing with the lives of these different people, and they're all dealing with lots of different things, from adultery to murder. There's so many things going on in this series, and these are things you can't binge watch this thing. And honestly, you need to take your time with it completely. I took my time with it. It took me probably about 7 or 8 days to watch this entire thing, which is a good thing, because I just love how I can lament on each one of these different stories and how impactful each of these stories were. Especially one of them. A short film about killing is one that actually impacted the society of Poland, oddly enough, because this movie kind of banned the death penalty in Poland, which is really, really interesting and really fascinating as a cultural movement. And just how compelling that story is itself is just, it's so fascinating to see something so emotionally impactful. It's just the fragility of human dignity and life. Is just something that's really, really interesting to see unfold in this. And that's something that I really love about this series right here. I actually wish I had a better version of it, because I got this kind of second hand, and it didn't come with the booklet, unfortunately. But I'm just absolutely in love with these films. It's something that I can't really revisit too often, because it's such an emotional journey. But I really love Decalogue, and I hope you do too. I highly recommend checking out Decalogue. This is a movie series, television series, that is just fascinating. And it really just kind of shows the full range of human just emotion, and the full range of just human capacity for what we do to each other and the relationships we have with each other. And I just absolutely love every element of this. Yeah, so check out Decalogue. So let's move on to number 3. Alright, so number 3, we're actually going to Batman right here, if you can see it in the camera. Ingmar Bergman. So we're actually going to talk about the first movie I ever watched with him. That is The Seventh Seal. This came out in 1957. We've already talked a little bit about it. 1957, you know, with 12 Angry Men and all that. But Seventh Seal is a movie that I really remember. It's one of the first Criterion movies I owned. It's actually one of the first kind of art house movies that I watched, and I really, really enjoyed. I remember watching it back in probably 2011, I believe, is the first time I watched it. And this movie just made such an impact on me. I've always been in love with history, with philosophy, psychology, and religion, and all of these things have just always fascinated me. Not, you know, an area to study for my specific degree or my career path, but it's just always something that's really fascinating. And so with all of those things kind of combined, you see this movie kind of as a poetic, you know, medieval movie that has this character dealing with something that is just so gross. Something's on it. It just totally broke the fourth wall there. But it's just this guy dealing with the idea of death and finality and how to approach that. You know, time is a really big factor with this movie, and time is something that all of us think about, and it's something that, you know, we have all of the happy moments with, you know, certain characters in this movie. We all have all of the fearful moments of when, you know, when the Reaper has come to take us. But it's just one of those films that just have stuck with me all of these years, and probably just the gateway to a lot of the art house films that I really enjoy. And Ingmar Bergman is just a phenomenal director. I just got to the first act, the Centerpiece 1 in the Ingmar Bergman collection, And I'm fascinated by this whole entire journey of his, and seeing all that unfold, with Seventh Seal being kind of near the early beginnings, when he was starting getting his groove in the 50s. And I don't know, it's just one of those movies that I just think is really fantastic. It's a near perfect film for me. It's got a really great comedy to it. It's got some seriousness to it. It's got some drama to it. It's got that huge range of Ingmar Bergman emotion that I just really absolutely love. It's one of those movies I'll never forget. I'll never forget the first time I watched this movie, and I'll never forget the last time I watch it. And it might actually be one of the last movies I watch as I'm living. I have no idea, because of just the stuff that it deals with. I absolutely love this movie. I highly recommend checking out Seventh Seal if you haven't already seen this movie before. Let's move on to number 2. Alright, so for number 2, this is actually one of my favorite movies of all time. That is Guillermo del Toro's Pan's Labyrinth. I've seen this movie probably more than any of the things on this list, even my number 1 that I'm about to show you later. Pan's Labyrinth is something that I just have absolutely always been in love with. I've always been in love with fantasy and horror, and in that fictional realm. It's always something that has just been kind of at my heart for most of my life. And Pan's Labyrinth is no exception. This gothic type of horror with just a fantastic score. I've actually been looking for the record by Javier Navarrete. I really want to get that record, but it's like out of print, and it's like so much money. But anyway, back about Pan's Labyrinth, the movie. This movie is just a phenomenal dark fairy tale about this little girl and this innocence to it, mixed in with this realism with Franco and the Spanish Civil War that happened in the late 1800s, early 1900s. And there's just something about this movie it deals with a lot of different things. It deals with the political realism of these fascist countries, these regimes that happened during actual historical moments. And it also deals with escapism, as like you're looking through the lens from a child who is trying to escape this terrible, terrible mess that's happening around them, to her mother, to her friends, just to a lot of just people that it deals with, that the realities of the world. And it just, it's such a beautiful film. It's a melancholic film. It's a movie that's happy and sad at the same time. I just absolutely love every moment of this movie. I've seen it, like I said, probably about 20 times. It's a movie that I can never get enough of. The only flaw I can really think of is the CGI for the frog, honestly, but that's because it's, a mid-2000s film. But Del Toro this is the best thing he's ever done. And I'm falling more and more in love with his work. I watched Crimson Peak the other day again. I've been watching the Hellboy movies, and I've also obviously loved Devil's Backbone, and Kronos, and all the other things that he's done, and Shape of Water, of course, as well. It's a really fantastic film, which is probably a really close second to this movie. But this movie, there's nothing that's ever captured my attention more that he's done than Pan's Labyrinth. And it's just something about this movie that just hits every checkbox for me. And it makes me cry every fucking time I watch this movie. And so it's just a movie that really, I love it because it holds a special place in my heart of my naivety as a child, the escapism involved, and it's just a really perfect film for me. So anyway, let's move on to my number 1 film from Criterion. What is it? Okay, this one shouldn't be too difficult. It's my favorite trilogy of all time, besides Lord of the Rings. It's the Before trilogy. Richard Linklater has crafted, in my opinion, the best thing you can do for romance ever. That's just a preference for me. I just really love Richard Linklater's characters in Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy. And I just really love how they deal with time, with realism, with the dialogue. It's been present throughout this entire top 10 list. You can tell there's probably themes that you've noticed about the things that I really, really enjoy. And this is just a perfect set of films. Honestly, if they make a 4th, I'm not going to complain about that, even though I think this is kind of a perfect trilogy. Each of these movies are crafted in a way with so much care and tenderness, with Ethan Hawke, Julie Delpy, and Richard Linklater himself. So the first one came out in 1995, Before Sunset. Second one picked up 9 years later in the story and in real life to Before Sunset in 2004. And then in 2013, it picks up 9 years again with Before Midnight. And this story is just, it's a fictional story of this romance and this relationship between Julie Delpy and Ethan Hawke's characters. And it's one of those things that unfolds that it just seems so natural. And I've had many conversations with people in my past and the relationships I've had in my life, romantic or otherwise, that just really mirror a lot of the things going on in this movie. These set of movies. And honestly, it's just really heartening. It's got a lot of tenderness to it. It's got a lot of really deep, difficult moments that I feel like is a little too close to realism. But that's why I love these set of films so much, is because it's something that, like, you know, as I've probably said before with Pan's Labyrinth and a few of other films, I'm one of those people I'm kind of a helpless romantic, and I kind of just really love things like that. If I didn't, I'd probably put Princess Bride in this list too, of some sort, but I had to pick 10. And so, but with Before Trilogy, it's just one of those movies that it perfectly fits everything I look for in just human connectivity with relationships. When it just deals with time, it deals with forgiveness, it deals with the hardships of what's going on at the current moment. It deals with a lot of the things that we don't really pay attention to, the intricacies of these things. I feel like we all do in our own lives, but to see it unfold on a screen between these characters that just, you know, it's a film, so we know it's fiction, and some of these movies are a little bit kind of aspects of reality. This is something that really just gets to the heart of what it means to be human. And that's something that all of these films that I've talked about really kind of get with me. And this element of storytelling is just so fascinating. That's another reason why I just love film so much. And Richard Linklater is one of those perfect directors for me that I've really enjoyed a lot of his work. And just how he deals with time is really, really cool. But this is his masterworks, in my opinion. And I love Ethan Hawke so much. Should have won the freaking Oscar, but he wasn't even involved. But anyway, that's me ranting. So that is currently my favorite films from Criterion. I missed a lot. I still haven't seen a lot of Criterion films. I'm watching the Apu trilogy right now. I'm actually on the second one, and I'm really excited to talk more about that a little bit down the road. But I want to hear your thoughts down below. What do you think of my top 10 list? I want to hear your top 10 Criterions down below. What do you think of the collection itself? What do you think of the movies? Give this video a like, comment down below. Don't forget to share this video, hit that notification bell, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. I'm not jonesing around.